Hello and welcome to Black Love and Cinema, where we break down love and relationships through the lens of your favorite movies. Today, we are going to be talking about lessons learned from 1 year of marriage. But to stay on brand with Black Love and Cinema, we are going to be talking about it using the Best Man series. You all know these movies and the TV show very well, so we're going to give you context for the lesson that we learned from our personal experiences, but we're going to give you a visual of what that looks like using the films. So we're just going to dive right into it. And the first lesson that we've learned after 1 year of marriage is that misalignment of values is a setup for failure.
Most people think of that as being equally yoked or having a same value system. These things are crucial to having a healthy and stable relationship.
So in the film, we could see Harper and Robin had been misaligned from the very beginning. One, in The Best Man, it was evident that Harper wasn't ready for a commitment. And that was evidenced by the fact that Robin said that she loved him. And basically, he acknowledged it, but didn't really go any further.
Right.
On top of that, when he went to prepare for the wedding, he left Robin at home and he was focused on connecting with Jordan, who basically is a problem throughout Harper and Robin's relationship. Basically, there's some tension between Robin and Harper and Jordan that persists, and that's because there was this relationship that never unfolded between the two, and so they're wrestling with this tension. Meanwhile, although it's evident that Harper has career ambitions that Robin supports, she also appears to have career ambitions that Harper supports in the beginning, the first movie. But we can see how, as time unfolds in The Best Man Holiday and later in the series, that their career ambitions are tied to different values, which ultimately results in a conflict that ultimately leads to their divorce.
The other positive version of this would be Lance and Mia. Even though they got a rocky start in the first Best Man because of Harper and Mia's
Indiscretion.
indiscretion, thank you. um, they came to the wedding. They knew their values were aligned, and they were committed to getting married and staying married, and basically keeping that commitment to each other. And their values lined up all the way until the end.
So essentially, what held them together was their faith and their belief about what marriage means.
Yes.
And that is what sustained them. And I also believe that's what helped Lance forgive Mia for what she did with Harper and help him move forward in a relationship and maintain its stability, its enjoyability, and faithfulness until the end.
The next lesson is anytime you choose, you lose, for better or for worse. Go ahead.
So, in any context, when you choose a person, that means you're excluding all others. And it doesn't matter if there was an idea you had in your head or if there was a real person that you knew at one point in time, that is over, particularly when you get married. So, you want to be conscious that every decision that you make comes with consequences that you simply cannot choose. When you enter a relationship, there are decisions that you make every single day that impact your relationship dynamic. It could be anything from choosing where you work, choosing how often you work, choosing where you live, and not just a house, but living in a townhome or living in a certain state or town. Every decision comes with a loss. And it's important to acknowledge that because, for one, it keeps you grounded in reality, but it also helps you to be mindful of the kind of decisions that you make so that you would get the best consequences as opposed to those that can make things a lot more challenging for you. So we already talked about Harper and Robin and the fact that Jordan had always been this lingering desire that was unfulfilled for Harper. And what he did was marry Robin. And so technically, theoretically, in principle, Jordan was no longer an option. But Harper's heart kept her an option, which is why their problems persist in the Best Man series. If he had chosen instead to pursue Jordan, he would have lost Robin. But based on how his and Robin's relationship turned out, it,
Wouldn't have been a bad loss.
it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
And it probably would have been best for both of them anyway.
Correct.
And then we have Merch and Shelby and Candace.
Yes. Merch, Shelby, and Candace. In the first Best Man, Merch is with Shelby. By the end, he meets Candace and decides he has a choice to make, and he chose Candace. Now, looking at this is actually a healthy choice. You could already tell that Merch and Shelby, pretty much, if we go back to lesson one, they weren't really aligned in values anyway. And with Candace and Merch, they had a better chemistry with each other, and they kind of He liked her. They fit very well. But in that same sense, there were some losses when he lost Shelby. We find out later on in the series that there were some acts that Shelby could perform that was better than Candace. And on the flip side of that, Candace had done some things in her past that affected Merch and Candace's future in their building of their legacy. And so you can see where things that you choose can have different consequences depending on where it is. And those could be really good things, they could be bad things, or they could just be details that you didn't think you would miss until you understand those consequences are there.
Number three is that individuality helps you remain attracted to each other. So when we leverage our strengths and operate out of our genius and just do things that we're really good at, it boosts our attraction to each other. So it's very important that even though when you get married, you become one flesh, you become a union, you don't allow that union to cause you to forsake who you are as an individual because that's what you were attracted to. So if you were a career minded person who tended to travel to give presentations and you excel at presentations, you're really good at your job, then instead of excluding your partner, invite them to see you in your genius. Let them see you as a professional who gives great pitches. Let them see you giving great presentations because that is what helps them be attracted. And it also lets them appreciate the work that you do instead of feeling that you choose work over them. The other thing is if you have a hobby and you're really skilled at doing something, it could be gaming, it could be paintballing, it could be painting, it could be singing, playing piano. Let them see you operate in that flow. One, it shows you have your own identity and that you can be autonomous and enjoy your life apart from them, if you will. But it also lets them see something great from you. It helps them see you produce something really cool, and that can be a turn on.
Remember, someone else could desire your spouse. They are sexually autonomous.
So, along with maintaining their individuality, when people see your partner flowing in their genius, they are looking at them as a holistic sexual being. They're not looking at someone performing music or someone who is performing a presentation. They're looking at a very sexy person who happens to be good at this. They're looking at a very intelligent person who is very sexual. And that is what makes it's so essential that you don't limit your partner to roles, what you think a wife should look like and how a wife should behave, what you think a husband should look like and how he should behave, because these roles stifle the passion, the attraction, the interest, and it causes you to look elsewhere. So when you recognize that this person is sexually autonomous, knowing it doesn't mean that they are free to just be sexual with everybody. It does mean that they have the freedom, the capacity to exercise this freedom, and therefore you need to be mindful that they can choose someone else at any point and someone could choose them at any point. And the fact that they don't do that is a blessing to you, but you need to recognize that that choice is always available to them because ultimately, though you may try to classify them a certain way, they are not just a mom, not just a wife, not just a husband. They are a sexual being who decided to commit to you. And basically, with that comes the responsibility to nurture the sexual part of them and to appreciate their individuality and see them as a holistically appealing sexual person who can make a decision at any point.
Pursue them.
Yes, pursue them. One example of sexual autonomy is with Quentin, Ziamara, and Shelby. So Ziamara is played by Nicole Ari Parker, Boris Kojo's wife, and she's a beautiful woman. So in the movie, we see that Quentin has fallen in love with this woman to the point where he's going to marry her, something that none of his friends ever thought he would do.
Right.
In the meantime, Shelby is here and she has these lingering feelings and she wants to stop this relationship. I mentioned earlier that she leads with her sexuality, but the thing about it is Quentin saw her in that one way. He saw Shelby as a sexual being. And Ziamara, although she's a beautiful woman, she also saw Shelby as a sexual being. She even alludes to the fact that she knows that Quentin and Shelby have hooked up before, and yet she's not worried about it. When you look at this the right way, you would recognize that the fact that your partner is sexual autonomous means that you need to invest, like you said earlier, pursue them so that their interest lies with you and not elsewhere. People are going to be attracted to other folks, but you don't want them to be attracted to other folks because they think you're not attracted to them. Therefore, if Ziamara would just own the fact that these people had a relationship in the past and was more interested in Q than she was in the properties that he owned,
Right.
then perhaps Shelby couldn't have just swooped in and taken him from her. Now there's history there, and
Yes.
they probably should have been together anyway.
Right.
But for the purpose of what we're trying to explain to you, this is why you need to recognize sexual autonomy. Q didn't even hesitate
Right.
to sleep with Shelby,
No.
even though he was getting married the next day,
It was
just like that.
like that.
So the next lesson is that change is inevitable. So you must be prepared to grow and to support the growth of your spouse.
We all know that as we grow and we learn and love, we change. But we have to be able to pay attention to that when it's happening with our spouse and be able to adapt to what that change is in order to support them. Some change is good in most cases. In some cases, it may not be good, but you still have to learn how to support that. Change could be in the form of illness. It could be in the form of jobs. It could be in the form of wealth. It could be in the form of loss of family. But we all have to figure out ways to support and adjust to those things.
So the main thing that we talk about often is people go through various seasons and stages of their life and relationship. And our main point is being ready to adapt. Sometimes you can see the seasons changing, and that can make you feel incredibly uncomfortable. But if you would take a step back and look at where your relationship has been historically and what you've overcome or what you've grown through, then it makes it easier to adapt to the change in the seasons and the stages of your life. We are what people would call technically midlife.
Yes.
We are empty nesters. Our children are adults. We are in a season of life that we don't know what's next.
Right.
I know I can anticipate menopause at some point,
Yeah.
and he can anticipate all that comes with getting older himself.
Yeah.
Those are things that we've already begun talking about to get as ready as we can for when those changes occur.
Right.
So when we see this in the movie, well, really it's a TV show.
Yes.
I guess if we backed up, they faced death with Mia dying in The Best Man Holiday.
Yes.
That was a loss no one had anticipated, and it was a devastating loss. So they're having to navigate that. And for Lance, it's a personal loss because that was his wife. And so he's trying to figure out, what is my life like after Mia? Because remember, they basically got married. They'd known each other since college.
Right.
And then after that, everyone else is navigating that loss as well. Then the final chapters, everybody keeps talking about how they're finally grown. Like they're
Yes.
getting their adult on. I'm like, y'all big grown. But okay. But they're all navigating different things. Quentin has a heart attack.
Yes.
Shelby is dealing with menopause.
Yes, she is.
She's also dealing with the fact that she's not the hottest girl on the block anymore. There's young women who people find more appealing.
Right.
And then we have Lance still dealing with the loss of his wife, trying to figure out if he's ready for another relationship, and then dealing with things going on with his own children. Jordan is trying to figure out her health because she's been consumed with career all these years.
Yes.
And now it's like, is this what I'm about? Do I want to have a family?
Right.
And then Harper and Robin are navigating they're changing values, but they have this little kid. And it's like, well, what do we do with this? Because we ain't on the same page no more,
Correct.
but we have this kid. Everyone is going through something. The change is inevitable, but how you handle that change is what makes the difference about whether you're going to succeed or, for lack of better words, fail.
The next lesson, and this is a big one, dying to self is a daily discipline that must be learned and can be developed.
So throughout the series, we can see that Robin made lots of sacrifices for the benefit of Harper. And that entailed supporting his career ambitions from the beginning and forgiving him when he made horrible decisions that affected her personally. And this was a persistent thing. There is nothing wrong with denying yourself for the benefit of other people. But for Harper and Robin, it's very much one-sided. Robin was always giving, and it appeared that Harper was always taking. The problem was Harper thought he was contributing to the relationship based on what he valued. He valued being able to provide for his family, which was great. It's a great value to have. But the way he was providing didn't align with what Robin needed. So then in the meantime, Robin is basically denying her own values for the benefit of Harper. And then it results in an implosion in their relationship, leading to their eventual divorce. One-sided selflessness is not beneficial. You can die to yourself and stay in a relationship where someone is taking all the weight, but it will create a very unhealthy relationship dynamic that makes you feel like you're dying inside rather than dying to self. But then a more positive mutual example is with Murch and Candace, where they are constantly serving each other. So instead of making Candace be the one who's solely responsible for the kids, Merch is just as invested in ensuring that his daughters have everything that they need and that they can get to their recitals or whatever events going on. Instead of making Candace sacrifice her doctoral program to play a role, he supports that. And just as much as she supports him seeking funding for the school that they funded together, and just as much as she supports his MMA once she finds out about it. They're constantly giving to each other. And with that, they have a stable relationship so that even when seasons and stages change, they're able to adapt and navigate everything together because they do everything together, always looking out for the best of each other. So the next thing that we've learned is that the way you communicate is very important. People constantly talk about how important communication is and they leave it vague. But it's not the fact that you talk that's important, it's how you're talking and what you're talking about and when that makes all the difference.
So throughout the film, we see that there are a lot of failures in communication. Some things that we are going to focus on are by John Gottman. There are 4 ways that you want to avoid communicating when discussing things or arguing in a relationship. The first one is criticism. Criticizing or demeaning your spouse in any way during a conversation or argument is not good. The next one is contempt. Contempt basically is having disgust or disdain for the other person, thinking that you're better than them in some type of way during that argument or discussion. That is a number one killer for relationships. Defensiveness. Even though you may feel like your point is correct, being defensive in the moment of an argument or a discussion can cause more issues. And in turn, it basically is putting the blame on the other person and not taking responsibility for the discussion or your part of the discussion. And the last part is stonewalling, cutting off, completely going silent and not responding or ignoring, of course, in itself is rejecting the conversation, and it leads to problems as well in communication. So those 4 things are things that you want to avoid while communicating. And you can see this portrayed in the film in different ways, but we're not going to go into details on those because there's so many different ways that they fail in communicating.
Particularly if you want to see this in action, the best relationship to trace is Harper and Robin. And that would be mostly in the final chapters.
Yes.
And if you want to learn more about these concepts that he just referred to, then you can refer to John Gottman's 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. The next lesson is that you can either have tough conversations or spend your marriage festering. So we already talked about that how you communicate is important, but we also need to ensure you understand that communicating is important even when the conversation will be hard to participate in. You have to have the tough conversations. If you don't share what hurts, if you don't share what frustrates you, if you don't share what you're angry about, if you don't share what you would hope for, dream about, have been wondering about, and you just let it sit in your mind, it's going to cause a chasm between you and your partner. And I know some people may think if I tell them this, it's going to hurt their feelings. I don't want to hurt them. If I tell them this, they're not going to receive it anyway. They're not going to change anyway. You might think it's not worth having a conversation. But the alternative is to fester. You're going to sit at home building resentment. You're going to sit at home cutting off intimacy, emotional, physical. You're going to sit at home wishing you were somewhere else. You're going to sit at home not paying attention to them, not caring whether they come or go, whether they sit next to you, whether they talk. It's so not worth it. So you have to choose what you're going to do. Again, you choose, you lose. So you choose to have a tough conversation, deal with the tough emotions that come with it, and work through it, or you choose not to have a conversation. Let your negative feelings fester and either end up divorced or end up staying in a marriage that sucks.
Yes.
That's unhealthy, that's unhappy, that's unstable, that's eggshells, all a mess. You don't want any of that. So decide, do you want to be in this relationship and you want to make it work, then you have to have the tough conversations. If you don't want to be in the relationship, it's still a tough conversation you need to have because you need to come to the table and say, you know what, I'm not feeling this no more. I'm not willing to invest in this anymore. I don't love you anymore. And I want a divorce. And then do it. That's tough.
It's tough.
But to say that, but to be in it and not have a conversation and investor makes no sense to me.
And you can see that with Harper and Robin as the series, they've been basically letting things just bubble up And then finally, Robin just
Robin let it bubble up.
Yes, she let it bubble up, and then finally it just comes
Out of nowhere.
And
at least as far as Harper is concerned.
yes, and that's where you see it. That contempt is probably there.
Yeah.
You have a lot of issues going on all at the same time.
So just have the conversation. And when you have these conversations, the other lesson we learned is it's important to validate your partner's emotions and don't make it about you, but instead seek to understand what they are feeling and thinking and why. I feel like we just explained what that means, but basically it's like for the example they showed with Harper and Robin's when they were in therapy, and then all of a sudden Robin unleashes things that she had been feeling for quite some time.
Right.
Harper is acting like it came out of left field. He doesn't understand, and he becomes defensive. One of those things that could be problematic when you're communicating. But what happened was she allowed all this stuff to fester, so that when she finally explained how she felt, he felt like she was just being emotional, that she just wasn't seeing it clearly. So instead of validating her feelings, seeking to understand, instead of acknowledging, oh, I see how you could think that, he decides, no, she's wrong. This is what I'm talking about.
Right.
This is how am I doing anything wrong when I've been providing for you, when I've been protecting you. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. He totally dismissed what the woman was saying. And when you he made it about himself by talking about what he was doing well from his perspective. But he didn't allow himself to put himself in Robin's shoes to see why she might feel the way she feels, or to even think about why she would wait till this all of a sudden moment to share what she's been feeling and thinking all along. Validation is key because it helps your partner feel understood, but it also, for me, it helps me feel respected. They always say men want to be respected, women need love. For me, love is feeling respected. So when you validate someone's emotions, they feel respected, and they understand that you desire to understand what they think and feel, and then that gives you something to work with. But when somebody doesn't feel understood, now you got the stonewalling coming up. They're like, you know what? It's not worth talking to you. I'm done talking to you because it ain't gonna go anywhere.
Some of the best advice that I've heard that explains this is care first, then understand.
Right.
So care about their emotions, care about what they're feeling, and then learn to understand what it is that they're feeling.
Or they say people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yes.
And so I can speak to that from conviction with my social work background. And people didn't care nothing about what I had to say until they knew I cared about them. And so when I established that rapport with various clients, then it was clear, oh, Jessica really does care about me. She's not out here just trying to make me follow a case plan, but she really does care about my well-being. She cares about how I think and feel about this. And with that, we made tremendous progress. That applies in your relationship dynamic. They don't care what you know until you show that you care. They don't care about what you think you understand until you demonstrate real care. So that's a key point.
And that rolls into our next lesson is it's important to respect and acknowledge your partner's real or perceived experience of you and seek to learn how they want and need to be loved. I'll let you speak on that.
This is a huge one for me. I find that people constantly talk about how they love their partner, and they totally dismiss what their partner says they're experiencing. For example, Harper and Robin, they are like the case study for the best man.
Yes, they are.
He is so proud of himself for protecting and providing for his family. That makes perfect sense. No one can say he does not do that. He is doing that very well.
Oh, yeah.
But he is doing it in a context that makes sense for him. He's dismissing what Robin says she needs and wants. And so for him, this is love. I am loving you by protecting and providing. I'm loving our daughter by protecting and providing. She feels loved when Harper acknowledges the things she cares about. So he cares about her being a chef to an extent, but he doesn't listen to her when she talks about different recipes or what she's learned about Ghana. He's not interested in the different dishes she's made and what they mean, the significance of the dish. He doesn't care about the fact that she wants to have a restaurant and needs him to move urgently to ensure she can get in this restaurant before someone swoops in and takes it. He cares in principle, but he's so focused on how he thinks she needs to be loved that he's disregarding how she says she needs to be loved. And that's why he's offensive or defensive when she brings these things up in therapy. When your partner tells you, I don't feel loved, that's not your time to prove all the ways that you love them. That's your time to listen, to understand. Because what they're saying is, my experience with you doesn't feel very loving. And of course, there could be some flaws in that, but it doesn't matter because if they don't feel loved, they don't feel loved.
That's their perception.
That's their perception. And that means if you don't respond appropriately, they're going to be looking for other options to get what they need. We see that in The Best Man final chapters when Robin finds herself sort of by this earthy, handsome young man who seems to share her values, who's interested in things that she's interested in, and also who finds her fascinating.
Right.
And so all that stuff appeals to her because Harper's not giving it to her.
Yes.
So when your partner says, I feel unhappy, don't try to prove all the ways you're happy. Instead, listen and say, well, what makes you feel unhappy? What does happiness look like for you?
Yes. Get that definition.
Get it out there. And then y'all can work through things from there. But don't say, how can you not be happy? You see this house we live in? You see this car you drive? You know how much money we have in our bank account?
I make sure your clothes are ironed every day. I cook and clean. I take care of these kids.
We have sex on a weekly basis. What you mean you're not happy? That is not the time and place for that. Listen, validate, understand. The other thing is marriage is serious, but you don't have to always take yourself so seriously. Have fun, be friends, live your life.
Yes. This is a big thing for me. Sometimes people take marriage way too seriously. They're like,
they're stuffy.
Yes. And it's like, this is the person you are planning to spend the rest of your life with. You should be able to have the most fun with this person. Mm-hmm. So why make it about everything serious? And we understand life can be serious. There's bills, there's work, there's kids, there's illnesses, there's doctors,
you got to handle your business.
Yes. But the whole point of being together is to be together and have fun and enjoy your life.
Yes.
And if you can't get enjoyment out of it, that's what's the point of the marriage?
Exactly.
You have to be able to enjoy it. You have to have the fun.
So we like how Murch and Candace have fun.
Yes.
They don't care what nobody say. They both equally weird.
Yes.
The way that they dance is weird.
Yes.
The way that they doing edibles, they just living their best life. It's just their little world.
They have their own code.
They have their own code. They gonna do them, and we love it for them.
Yes.
Because it's so evident that they're friends.
Yes.
And that's what you want, is to have this friendship. Quentin and Shelby are friends.
Yes.
And their whole thing is banter. Always running their mouth, but they enjoy each other.
And they hype each other up.
Yes, that part. Hype each other up. Totally supportive.
Yes.
I got your back. You are amazing. All these things, great. This is the kind of dynamic you want to have in your relationship. You know where that comes from? That comes from appreciating their individuality.
Yes.
That comes from seeing them as a holistic sexual being. That comes from having conversations to help you navigate through rough spots so that you even like being around each other.
Right.
It's all connected. And then the next thing is sex is a vital part of the relationship that strengthens your emotional, physical, and spiritual connection. A lack of sex or leaving sexual issues unresolved can weaken your bond, causing a rift in your marriage. So the best example, which was the foundation of this movie, is the scandal that happened between Mia and Harper.
Right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning. So Mia and Harper had sex basically for Mia to get back at Lance for cheating on her. Now, this all happened in college.
Right.
But Lance was still with Mia, and he ended up marrying her, and it came out that this happened just before he was going to marry her. So that could have caused a rift in their marriage, and it didn't in this case because of, number one, the values were aligned, which was essentially their faith, which implies forgiveness, and they move forward from there. But in that kind of violation going on can cause a rift.
And in The Best Man Holiday, it even got carried forward when, before she passed, she had to have him
acknowledge that it happened.
Yes.
Yes. So then the other example would be like Murch and Candace. So they're the stable couple, and on the surface it may look kind of boring,
right,
but their relationship helps them bond because they even have a signal of when they're going to have sex. And so they have a signal and they respond accordingly. And they have a system or a schedule. And Candace very often tells him, hey, I'm ready. I'm excited to do this. Let's go. And that's a good thing. So that creates a bond, which is very much needed in a relationship.
And in that same sense with Quentin and Shelby, Shelby's drive was through the roof, and Quentin had to figure out how to catch up to that. Mm-hmm. And even though they played it out in a comical way, it could have been a major issue, and they had to address it. He had to address it.
Yeah.
He had to say, "Hey, look, he had a heart attack trying to keep up with her." So they had to address those health issues in order to make it work better for them.
Which goes with our next lesson, which is maintaining an open line of communication about sex is absolutely essential. And basically, you need to be prepared to adapt or compromise. So, if we went along with the example he just provided, after Quentin's heart attack, they had to change how they did everything. First of all, the doctor let them know it's going to be a while before you can do this.
Yes.
But in the meantime, Quentin had to clean up his eating habits and drinking habits.
Right.
And there was a lot of adapting that needed to take place, which was incredibly frustrating and upsetting for him. And yet, they did this for the benefit of his health, but also it ended up improving the quality of their relationship.
Right.
You're gonna have to have these conversations. We already talked about how Merch and Candace had a signal. That is a form of communication regarding the person wanting or needing physical contact. So these are kind of things you can do. You can use cues, you can have conversations and keep it ongoing so that you don't assume that you already know what they want and need all the time. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, your partner's not responding. You're trying to figure out why that is.
Correct.
You won't run into these problems if you keep the lines of communication open.
Be transparent.
Be transparent. And I would dare say, be transparent about everything, even things that you feel like are completely personal and only pertain to you as a woman or as a man. You have to share that information so that y'all can work together and figure out what works best for you when you're in when you are engaging in sex.
And no, you're gonna get older and things are gonna change. And so you're gonna have those conversations too. Menopause and old
Yeah.
age, things like that. Our bodies are eventually breaking down and we're gonna have to deal with those.
So the next thing is that boundaries are absolute must. If we haven't made it clear, Harper did not have boundaries with Jordan. He kept her as an option, and even though he
Our opinion is from the get-go, when Robin and Harper got together, Jordan should have been completely taken out.
yes, and some people will say, well, they're best friends, they've been friends since college, whatever. The fact that she is a temptation for him is why she should have been cut off.
Mhm.
And yes, I understand she's part of the friend circle. He would have ran into her, but he didn't have to be intimately involved with her, which we see him do time and again throughout the entire series.
Yep.
He always found an opportunity to be with her by himself.
Yep.
And if there was no violation between him and her, especially when he was with Robin, maybe it wouldn't have been a big deal.
Right.
But we know they have history, and it's that tension that they've been wrestling with that causes the problem. So you have to have boundaries. We talk about boundaries in one of the videos. I'll link it in the card so you can go watch it.
Yes.
I think I love my wife.
Yes, definitely.
We talk about boundaries. You need to have them to protect your relationship, and that's it. And then your sexual or romantic past, whether it's real or fantasized, will impact the way you experience your spouse. So where I say fantasize, I'm talking about fantasies as far as like what you imagine would be with other people or with your partner or things that you watched or consumed or read in some way. All of that will impact the way you experience your partner. So you need to, what is this old song? Watch your eyes, watch your ears.
Yes.
Watch your eyes, what you see, with your ears, what you hear. Because if you don't, you're gonna have somebody flashing through your head while you with your spouse. You're gonna have some memory tainting the experience that you're having, thinking that it would be better if you were with this person. It would be better if they did what you saw or read in some book or on a movie. You got to get all that stuff out. And I understand we have past and histories, but if you don't deal with it, it's going to haunt you. It's going to come up in some form or fashion that's going to make add to your list of tough conversations to have.
Yes.
So we have so many examples. There was no boundaries in these people. They saw way too much of each other.
Like I feel like besides Jordan and Robin, the rest of them the women were kind of everybody saw a little bit of everybody at some point.
Yes, it was way too much. And we don't even know where to begin with the examples because there's a lot. But basically, maintain those boundaries with the sexual past that you have and deal with the emotional and physical impact of that past, or else it will affect your emotional and physical intimacy with your partner. And then number 15, the lesson we learned was if you choose to forgive your spouse, you are choosing to let go of the offense and make daily decisions together that will repair the relationship and strengthen your bond and rebuild trust. So we won't provide examples of that because we do that in our video on soul food.
Yes.
where we go through the reach forgiveness model and we show how what forgiveness looks like, the practice of forgiveness, and even how you get to the state of forgiveness in the first place. So go watch Soul Food so you can see what we're talking about. But basically, you can't say you forgive your partner and then keep trying to make them pay for something they did.
Right.
You forgive and then you move forward, and basically you're starting over.
Building it.
Yeah.
Disregarding our next lesson, disregarding or having a heated discussion or argument about something doesn't automatically mean you're married. You married the wrong person or that your marriage is over. So if you have a disagreement, an argument, it's not the end of the marriage. It's not the end of the relationship. You have to understand that arguments are going to happen. You're not always going to agree on the same things. And so how you communicate in those argument moments is what's going to help you get through those. So we already talked about having the tough conversations and what not to do in those conversations. So we just want to keep with that focus.
The number 17 lesson we got was you may have to face demons that you felt were resolved or that you healed from while you were single. So there's so many things that I learned about myself. Basically, the idea is when you're single, you have all this time to heal, to meditate, pray, journal, do all these things to help you get to a healthy space. I wrote a whole book about it. And then you get married and you realize I was never triggered because I wasn't in a situation that would cause me to be triggered. When you're in a relationship now, you have to face things that you didn't have to face when you were by yourself. Looking yourself in the mirror is a whole different ballgame from looking at your spouse as a mirror. And so you have to acknowledge that when these things come up, it's not a sign, oh my God, I married the wrong person. Oh my God, he's horrible or whatever. It's a sign that there's more growth to do. And now you have this partner who can help you grow. You guys are going to grow together, mature together, and become more evolved, better people together if you do the work. But just know something's going to come up that's going to make you be like, wow, I thought I was cool, but apparently I need to work on this.
And that may require you to do some dying to self.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Never,
18.
You never stop parenting.
Yes.
So if you do have kids or you're going to have kids and your kids are already grown, it never stops.
It doesn't stop.
So when you're with this person, if they have kids, you know that person's going to have to be a parent. If you don't have kids yet, but you're thinking of having kids, once you have kids, you're going to be a parent forever.
Ever.
So, yes.
Not with our kids, 21, 22, and 24.
Yep. And we still continue to parent.
Always. It's always something.
Yes.
The other thing that might throw y'all off is that divorce is always an option. So I got this from, we wrote a covenant.
Yes.
And in the covenant that we wrote after we got married, we talked about divorce is not an option. And then we listened to a podcast with Kevin and Melissa Fredericks, Kev on stage, and his wife. And she basically said initially that was her mindset, but then her parents got divorced. It wrecked her. And then she recognized, no, divorce really is an option. But what's powerful about that is not so much it's an option that we should exercise. It's the fact that you can exercise the option makes it powerful when you stay because you understand the implications of doing so. When you stay, it's kind of like forgiveness. You're deciding that everything I do is going to be for the benefit of my partner. It's going to be for the benefit of our relationship. And when you realize that it's no longer for the benefit of you, that's when you see divorce is an option. And so when you allow yourself to accept the reality, realistically, I don't care what you put on paper, realistically, divorce is an option.
Right.
But when you acknowledge that in principle, I think it changes the way you engage in your relationship. It kind of forces you to be more intentional. It forces you to think about the implications of all the lessons we shared with you thus far, because you have to decide to show up every day, choosing to love your spouse every single day, knowing that at any point they could decide, I cannot and I will not do this anymore. And they may decide that even if you give everything you have, but at least you've given everything you have with this view that divorce is an option. Therefore, I choose to love them intentionally to the best of my ability with the power of God for the rest of our lives. So our next point is that not all relationships can or should be saved. There are times where you enter a relationship that you shouldn't have been in. And the reason you shouldn't have been in that relationship could be because there's evidence of red flags indicating this relationship will result in toxic stress or trauma. Toxic stress is basically ongoing stress where you are basically always on alert. You're always in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. You don't know what's going to happen. You feel unstable emotionally. You have this heightened state of anxiety. There's different trust issues. There's so many different dynamics that happen in your relationship that create this ongoing sense of instability, insecurity, and the relationship is not healthy. Your own health declines physically, emotionally, spiritually. That's different.
Okay.
So then we have trauma. Trauma is where abuse comes in.
Gotcha.
We have actual different forms of abuse taking place. It could be emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. All these different dynamics are taking place, and they're doing harm to you, or you're doing harm to them. These are relationships that you should not be in. People tell you, especially Christians, like to tell you that you gotta stay. God doesn't support divorce. You gotta stay in a relationship. My biggest thought is that most of these divorces that take place are between people who should have never gotten married, but they did. And now they're dealing with the consequences and they finally left. If you are in a toxic or traumatic relationship, I pray that you're not married to them so that you can make a decision now. Again, choose you lose. Make a decision now to let them go so you don't have to deal with the trauma and toxic stress for however many years you could possibly deal with it in your relationship. Those are relationships that cannot or should not be saved. Going through tough times does not automatically mean the relationship should end. Going through tough times means you are alive, dealing with change. The way you handle those tough times will make all the difference on whether you will emerge victorious, as evidenced by developing a stable, secure, sustainable, mutually satisfying relationship. But if you engage in unhealthy relationship dynamics, or you refuse to learn how to practice emotional intelligence, how to die to yourself, how to communicate effectively, among other things, then you're going to cultivate an environment of toxic stress or trauma that will lead to the inevitable decline and perhaps the ultimate demise of your relationship. So you have to be able to distinguish the difference between one that cannot or should not be saved and one that's just challenging. We live in a day where people just get rid of challenging, but challenging is supposed to help you grow. But we're talking about the things that are really just truly harmful to you, physically, emotionally harmful, and it persists in harm. That shouldn't be saved. Now, we have an example from the movie. No one was abused in these films. The toxic stress, the closest we could say would be Murch and Shelby,
Yeah.
and they cut that relationship off. But the other relationship that ended was with Harper and Robin. That is a relationship that shouldn't have existed. And it's not because of toxic stress or abuse, it is because their values didn't align
From the start.
from the start. And so, if you're in that situation, anything we listed up until this point, that's a relationship that probably either can't be saved or should not be saved. So, consider all of that. Misalignment or any of the 20 things we just listed before could be something that cannot be saved. Things that should not be saved align more with the toxic stress and the trauma. So use your discernment before you lock into a marriage with somebody so you don't even have to go through all that. Which leads us to our last lesson learned, which is the first lesson if we want to be deep.
Yes.
And that's depending on God is mandatory.
Yes. You have to be able to put God first in everything, regardless of what it is that you're doing, regardless of what you think you provide to the marriage, whatever you think, whether things are going good, whether things are going bad, depending on God is mandatory.
Yeah.
And in the movie, they showcase that as well with Lance and Mia. Their faith carried them all the way through till death.
Yeah.
And that is, God, family, and Black Love and Cinema, right?
Home for us.
Yes.
Yes.
So there you have it.
Yeah, I guess I don't have anything else to add to that. So these are lessons that we hope they all make sense to you. We use the best man because we ain't telling you all our business. But hopefully you gain some insight that will help you evaluate the relationship you're in before getting married and maybe even rethink how you do things in your current marriage. So that's it. Take care. Happy anniversary.